Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm George, and today I'm here in Clapham Common, and I'm going to be painting with the London Plein Air painting group, and they meet up once a month on the first Saturday of each month. And as I live quite close to Clapham, I thought, why not get up this morning? It's a beautiful day, the sun's out, quite a bit of blue sky, not too cold for a winter day either, so a great day to paint. So I'm going to be doing a plein air landscape somewhere on Clapham Common. I don't quite know where yet, and I imagine I'll probably bump into some other artists, painters that maybe I know, maybe some I don't know. So let's try and find a spot to paint. So I've chosen the spot that I want to paint, and you get a nice bit of blue sky, some of those clouds catching the sunlight and the reflections on the water. I may also paint some birds and wildlife into the scene as well. Remember, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's start painting here in Clapham Common. Today I'm painting on an offcut of primed linen canvas that I've taped to a plywood board and toned with raw umber paint, creating an orange-brown ground to work on top of. Using raw umber paint, I'm sketching in the main shapes within my composition. I've placed the horizon line above the centre of my canvas so that the sky will take up about 1/3 of my canvas. This enables me to fit more of the water into my painting, which will allow me to really focus on the colours and the details in the reflections and the ripples in the water. Also, as a general rule, you don't want to place the centre line right in the middle of your painting, as this will sort of cut the scene in half and it can create a static and less engaging composition. I like the position that the clouds are in now, with the cloud on the right hand side taking up a big section of the sky, with its contour creating a strong diagonal pointing down into the scene. So I'm sketching these in quickly, as anyone who's painted en plein air before will know that the positions and shapes of the clouds are ever changing. As the imprimatura that I applied to my canvas is still wet because I applied it just before I started painting, I can use some kitchen towel that I've dipped into my medium to wipe away the brown tone and bring back the white of the canvas for the lightest sections of the clouds. I also wipe back the sky as well, as this is also one of the lightest sections of the painting. And by doing this, it serves two purposes. One, it gives me a quick visual impression of the big light shapes within the scene, and also it means that I won't have to paint my very lightest paint on top of this slightly wet brown ground, which will darken the paint. So by wiping it away, the canvas is pretty much dry in the areas I've wiped it back, and then I can paint my paint a lot cleaner on top of this. I'm now sketching the underdrawing in more detail using raw umber paint. I'm really focusing on lining up the reflections precisely, as I know that once colour is introduced, as well as that joyous feeling of applying thick and expressive brushstrokes, added to the constant movement of the water's surface, that it can be really easy to lose track of the accuracy of the drawing, and the reflections might not line up with the objects causing them, which will look very strange. So I'm really trying to lock them in place correctly and avoid this mistake. I'm now painting the lightest section of the blue sky, which is the area directly above the horizon, which is lighter and warmer in colour temperature than the sky higher up. For this section I'm using titanium white, cerulean blue, and a small touch of yellow and alizarin crimson, and a small touch of raw umber as well, to create a light value that is a slightly greyed down pale blue. And as the sun is in front of me and is lighting the scene from the top left, the overall value of the sky is lighter and paler than if I were to paint in the opposite direction with the sun to my back, where I could expect to see deeper and cooler blues in the sky. As I paint the rest of the sky, I make a separate colour mix which has a bit more cerulean blue in it, and as the sky gets further to the right away from the sun and higher up towards the zenith, it takes on a slightly cooler blue tone, while still remaining very light in value. Here I'm using my palette knife to mix a colour mix for the lightest sections of the clouds, using titanium white, cadmium yellow and a small touch of raw umber. I'm not using pure white as titanium white is a bit too cold in colour temperature, and these sections which are getting lit by the sun, which is a warm light source, have a warm golden glow. One tip when painting clouds is to remember to think of them as three-dimensional forms, and I really recommend getting familiar with the classical order of light and how this applies to an object. The classical example of this is the diagram of light hitting a sphere, and I've made a more in-depth tutorial about this concept, which I believe is my most watched video that I've ever made. But anyway, back to how this is helpful when painting clouds. So one thing beginners tend to get wrong when drawing the sphere in light and shadow is where they place the specular highlight, the lightest light. The common mistake is to place the highlight right on the edge of the sphere. However, by doing this, it makes the sphere look 2D, as the edges are turning away from the light source, so they should get darker, even on the side closest to the light. The only time you would place the highlight on the very edge of the sphere would be if it was getting lit from behind, in which case the whole sphere would be in shadow and there would just be maybe some rim light on the edges. And then when painting the clouds, remember that unless they're getting backlit, the lightest light will never be on the very edge, as just like when studying the sphere, the edges are turning away from the light, and the lightest light is always on the point closest to the light source, which won't be the very edge. So one useful tip to really observe clouds more closely is to look at them through a pair of sunglasses, where you can really observe the details without getting too dazzled by the brightness of the clouds and the sky. Or you could use a black mirror, also known as a clawed glass, which was a very popular tool by artists in the 18th and 19th century, and it's believed that great artists like J.M.W. Turner, Thomas Gainsborough, John Constable and Richard Wilson used one in an aid when observing and painting nature. To paint this section of cloud and shadow, I'm using a colour mix of titanium white, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson and a touch of yellow ochre and raw umber to counterbalance the purple created by the blue and alizarin crimson. I'm also being careful not to paint the shadows too dark, as the clouds are still a light area within the tonal range of the painting. So one thing to bear in mind when painting reflections is they will never be quite as light in value as the thing that they're reflecting, and they will also not be quite as high in chroma. They won't be quite as colourful as the area they're reflecting. It will always be a slightly greyed down, slightly duller image being reflected into the water, and also some of the water's local colour or the local colour of the riverbed underneath will also influence the colour of the reflections as well. As I paint the trees, I'm painting the ones closest to the foreground slightly darker in value than the ones in the distance, in order to capture a sense of depth in the scene. Also with the buildings, I'm painting them gradually lighter in value as they get lower down, to create an atmospheric effect, and also to capture the bounce light that they're receiving from the ground on this sunny day. So in my opinion, a painting of a lake is never finished until at least one bird is painted swimming in it. So here I'm painting a goose which gives the painting a bit more visual interest in the foreground, as well as some more narrative to the scene. It was really enjoyable painting in Clapham, and over 90 artists turned out to paint, which was really great to see. And if you're interested in joining the London Plein Air Painters, then I'll put a link to their Instagram in the description of the video, so that way you can find the next painting location, so you can join us and paint as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give the video a like. I really appreciate it, as it helps out my channel. Also remember to subscribe and ring that little notification bell, so that way you won't miss out on my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.